Hi everyone. So I have something new for you. This is Noble Dutch. So, just a quick little thing about them. They make high quality, plant-based and convenient food that fuel your body and fits your routine. Whether you're juggling work, family, fitness, or personal goals, they make sure that you always have access to wholesome, gluten-free meals that, of course, you can trust. So, they have basically meals that you can get that are tasty, healthy, and ready in just 8 minutes. And again, it's vegetarian, it's gluten-free, and it's packed with 11 grams of protein. Yes, please. They have some meals, for example, like the instant jasmine rice and tomato sauce. And again, that's ready in 8 minutes. And it comes in 12 bowls, a carton, and it contains ingredients like jasmine rice, tomato sauce, chili oil, soya chunks, carrot and peas, and a spoon in case you need that as well. So basically, it's quick and easy. You would pour that jasmine rice and the carrots and those peas into a bowl, and then you would add boiling water up to the marked line inside of that bowl, close the lid and let it sit for 8 minutes. And then you would open, add the needed amount of tomato sauce and chili oil into that bowl, stir and enjoy. Very simple, very easy. So you can earn Dunch points with every meal. You can basically get a point per dollar that you spend. You can get 60 free birthday Dunch points, and you can get 50 points per referral when you refer a friend as well. And that all kind of adds up. So if you're interested in that and you want to take part in this, you can head over to my link that helps support not only Noble Dunch, but also supports the podcast. And that is going to nobledunch.com/HEKVNLEC. And that link will also be in the show notes. Patreon, going strong. If you want to go over there and join in on the fun, we got 3 tiers on Canadian dollars. First tier is $3 a month, where you get these episodes ad free. You also get AMAs once a month, or Learn About Me episode once a month. And then on the second tier, which is $5 a month, you get everything from the first tier, as well as coverage of a reality show of yesteryear. That's right now Jersey Shore. We're currently in season 3. You can also go to the main feed, where there will be the first episode of every season released there, so you can try that before you head over to the Patreon. And then on the third tier, you get everything from the first 2 tiers, as well as coverage from a true crime documentary. We got the backlog of Ashley Madison documentary, Man of 1,000 Kids, Into the Fire, Lacey Peterson, and again, all those episodes for the first episode of each is in the main feed, so you can try that before you head over. So if you are interested, you can head over to patreon.com/realityt ×2, and you can sign up for whichever tier you feel for. Again, you can try before you buy, which basically means you can try any tier for a week before committing to it. Even if you are on other tier, if you are on tier 1 or the first tier and you want to go over to the second tier, you could still try that second tier for a week before committing to the upgrade. So again, that is at patreon.com/realityt ×2. And of course, the link is in the show notes, website, social media accounts. It's all available there. This episode is ad-free on the Patreon. So if you want to partake in that, you can head on over to patreon.com/realityt ×2. Welcome to Reality Tea Times 2, the podcast where we discuss all the trash reality TV we love to hate. I'm Tanika, and today we're going to be discussing the 5th episode of Age of Attraction. I did realize that I didn't talk about the new cast of 90 Day in the B90 episode that I was going to. I will be doing it. It'll probably be in, so this is the 5th one, probably either the 7th or 8th episode of Age of Attraction. So that would be either one of Thursday's episodes, so, or Friday. Look out for that. I will be doing it on one of those episodes. I realize I missed that. Anyways, let's just jump into the reason why we are here, and that is episode 5. So we find out Libby is a blanket hogger. Yeah. So he asks her, does commitment scare you? Well, you know what? When you're 22, but she's like, no, no. That to me, she's like trying to say, no, I'm not scared of commitment, but she actually is scared of commitment. She's 22. I don't think it's a matter of being scared of commitment. She's 22. When I think of what I was at 22, I wasn't necessarily scared of commitment. I just wanted nothing to do with it. Then I met my ex-husband. Things changed. But anyways, um, I think it was him that said, do you think our real world dynamics would get in the way? Like, what if I have to take my daughter somewhere and you want to hang out? She says, I would honestly be turned off if you did drop everything for me. And I think that's the right answer. That's the right answer. I have no notes. So we have Teresa and John at a restaurant. They're clearly, y'all, having a lot of sex. I feel like they're one of the only couples at this point that are having sex. Really and truly, I think there's only 2 out of the 6 that are having sex, and they're one of them, and it's a lot. I mean, good for you. She asks him how he feels about kids and her having more kids. And he says, I really never thought about having a family of my own. He says at this stage, if someone comes to him and asks, I want kids, he says he would say no. And I mean, I don't think it's crazy that at his age, I think he's 28, right? I don't think it's crazy that he knows I don't want kids at this point, but I don't think it's also crazy that he could change his mind. And I guess and this is gonna kind of come in with Logan later too. I I think maybe there's a difference of what I'm about to say, but I know with my boyfriend, I met him at 28, and he would say he wanted kids and he wanted a family, but he didn't want them then. He would do anything and everything to make sure it didn't happen at that point in his life, to the point where it would come across as if he didn't want to have kids. So I don't think it's crazy that he could change his mind, which then would lend into how does this work when she's 54? She's, biologically probably done having children. And even, I don't know if it was her or if it was Vanessa that said it later on, that even if, she is capable of having children, it's not safe, right? Actually might have been her in this actual conversation. Um, so she says, well, having kids for her, the ship has sailed, obviously. And if I did get pregnant, it would be unhealthy. If it comes to it, she is potentially open to adoption or surrogacy. But again, it's like, okay, surrogacy obviously would be that person carrying that person's egg. Is he okay with that? Or if you do adoption, I mean, is there an age cutoff? Like if they see that a mother is in, well, depending on what time they decide, if they ever decide to have children, is a woman or any person, any partner in the partnership in their mid to late 50s, is that is that a good candidate for placement? I do not know, right? But he says, do I think my mind will change in 10 years? No. He says he likes his peace. Don't we all? And she says, and you want to hear something crazy? I probably would have tried to hook you up with my daughter. Oh, oh, okay. Um, Maybe we don't say that. Maybe we keep our inside thoughts to the because here's the thing. That's never gonna happen now. And Julia says, "Oh well, Laura." That's her daughter's name, I'm assuming. That will never happen. We're talking the weirdest sexual exposure ever. Hey, it happens. My boyfriend could tell stories. He has. I'll leave it there. Then we see Vanille and Jorge, and they're kissing. And this man actually asks, is kissing me better than Justin? What the fuck? Sir, sir, take Justin's name out your mouth. Justin, baby Justin, leave him alone. She didn't pick him, she picked you. Maybe that was not a good choice, but she picked you. So for you to come out here and be like, do I kiss better than Justin? What does that even have to do with anything? I don't like that. It's for a man who you at your big age is saying things like that, that's disgusting. Moving on. Then we have Chris and Leah. His dad, we've learned, is unwell, and he seems to really, you know, help out with that. And she asks, can your family manage without you, or do they have to like have you step or would they have to step up if you're not there? And I guess the thing is like he is a presence for his family during this time. And I don't know, I find it a little bit selfish of her to maybe have any form of expectation that he leaves Miami, 'cause he is from Miami, to live with her in Los Angeles just because she doesn't want to leave Los Angeles. As far as we know, I don't think she has children. I don't think there's anything tying her to Los Angeles besides that's just where she's from. And well, she's from Bakersfield, but whatever. This is where she's from. And he has and she's a flight attendant at that too. So she is spending, I think, lots of time traveling for her employment. And you're asking him to change where he's from or where he lives when he has family that need him and his father who's unwell. For me, as a child of parents, I couldn't do that. Who have their own my mom has her thing, my dad has his. I could not feel comfortable moving away from my family, from my parents, point blank period, because who else is going to ensure that they're okay? And I understand, like, there's other people who can step in and it'll be fine, but if there's, like, a group effort with this, it would be very difficult to have one person not be there. Because again, as a person who a lot is on me when it comes to my mom, there is the aid there with my father, but eventually that's gonna change, and I'm literally mentally wrapping my mind around a lot is going to be falling on me. So, it's it would be amazing to have that support from all aspects, and to have that taken away because she doesn't want to move, I find very selfish. I do. Straight up. He's not doing that anyways. So, um, he says, I always thought that I wouldn't be able to settle down until my dad passed away. But in the last couple of years, that's changed. And he can take care of himself. But her concern is like, can he move to California despite this, or is he stuck in Florida? Now, I hated that too. Stuck in Florida, man. I need to ask you, why are you hell bent on being in California? Why are you stuck in California? Now, I'm sure she probably, I don't know how this works. She works for like the airline. You work for the airline, not airport. So if assuming you work for the airline, I don't know what airline she works for. Maybe it's Spirit. I don't know. I don't know what airline she works for. But can you not relocate? Because if it's like, I don't know, we're just gonna use Spirit Airlines as an example. Sorry, but if we're gonna use Spirit Airlines, I'm sure they. Well, maybe they only go to one place, but I'm sure they don't go out of one airport or one city. I'm sure they have multiples. I'm sure Spirit is in Miami, who knows? So, like, could you not go to a different city, but still work within your airline? These are my questions. So, it's I don't know. I feel like when it comes to the the scale of what is more important to your job, especially when you're a flight attendant or a parent's health and aiding in their care. So I'm sorry, the aiding in the care of the family member is gonna come a little bit higher than your job, especially when it's a flight attendant job. That could be different if it's, like, not a flight attendant job and it's, like, a desk job. That's different. But it's I don't know, it feels pretty mobile. So, he says, "I wouldn't be closed off to moving, but it's not my first option." And she actually has the audacity to ask him, "Why?" I think I think he's made it pretty clear why up until this point. When he says family, duh, his own business. She says, but you could travel to see them a couple of times a month. Really? So your solution is for him to travel to Florida a couple times a month, which is going to be exhausting over time and expensive. Who's paying for that? So that doesn't really seem like a great option. Um, she says, I'm not trying to move you away from them, but you would think the goal is to be self sufficient, but that is not what he is saying. He's not saying he's not self sufficient. He's not saying that him being self sufficient isn't achievable or even a reality for him right now. What he is saying is that his family needs him. His dad isn't well. That is different. She had absolutely no wherewithal besides her own needs and her own wants. Anyways, we then have Derek and Pfeiffer. They just being cute, nothing more to say. We're with Jorge and Vanel, and it's 3 a.m. This is when shit hits the fan. He says, being celibate is hard for him. It's not something that he would have chosen for himself, pretty much, which, again, he's not really trying to be celibate here. He says, pretend writing, it's confusing me. So let me get this straight. She wants to be celibate. Fine. They're doing everything but actual penetration by the sounds of things. And it's something that she is initiating. So she's fucking with him. And here's my thing. I'm going to have choice things to say about him later. But in this, I don't know, it feels a little childish, I think, to air hump or is it dry hump, whatever. It's I haven't done it in a long time. It feels very childish. It feels very high school, something you would do when you were still a virgin or something. And I'm not saying because you're an adult, you have that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there are forms of intimacy where it's not going to confuse him and play games with him, and you're still respecting yourself. It doesn't have to be that. So she says, then why am I here? Sex is not going to happen until I am married, which is something obviously she voiced in the promise room. It will not happen before that. So that's where we end with that conversation. Later that day, it's awkward in the apartment. He says, the person who wants to be celibate has the right to feel what they feel. But for the person who is not choosing to be celibate, gets to feel how they feel. And that's true. Just because she wants to be celibate and has chosen to be celibate for her reasons, I'm going to keep it 100 here. There's not a lot of men out there that is going to choose to be celibate. There just isn't. And again, when you have a man with this man's big age, he's just not going to do it. I don't fault him. I don't fault her. But there is going to be the reality of it of there's just not going to be a lot of men that are going to be okay with it. He says, I didn't walk away from her because I didn't want to miss out on this. But then again, I'm going to come for him now. That's going to also give her false hope and confuse her. You made it seem to her and to me as a viewer that you're okay with her being celibate, that you're a grown ass man, you can handle yourself, it's fine, blah, 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 blah. But really, it's not fine, according to you now. So that's confusing. You don't get to see where this can go. And what? Hope that maybe she'll sleep with you? Like, I don't know what your end goal was, but that's confusing for her. And I don't think that's how you go about things. But for her, this is a non negotiable. If it isn't resolved, she will need to walk away. More on that later. We're with Vanessa and Logan, and they are talking about their roommate conversation that they had before. He is just questioning, is there some insecurity for her? Yes. The answer is yes. He questions, are you projecting by thinking that I was treating this as a 2-week fling? Because in this conversation, she's kind of making it seem that she's treating it like a 2-week fling. And maybe, yeah, again, projecting that onto him. Because, you know, summarizing the things that she says here, that she basically just wants to fuck around and find out when he is maybe treating this a little bit more seriously. And to me, I think that kind of lends to, then why are you here? Are you here to have a good time? That's it. Be done. It's not going to go nowhere. And that's kind of that. And then he says, also, you really do like to tell me what to do. Like you're mothering me. She really is. If she's annoying about it, she really is mothering him. There isn't equal footing here. And doing all that isn't going to necessarily make him want to fuck you, girly pop. Like you might want to cut that out. Anyway, back with Leah and Chris. He's sleepy and he wants to take a nappy. And she says, you're leaving me? Girl, with your big ass age again, you're 41 years old. What? And he says, well, we just had brunch. And she's like, well, we could sit on the balcony. Like she's trying to do everything for him to not take a goddamn nap. And he says, well, you know what? Decision made. Shower, nap, then gym. That's what he wants to do. He just wants to have some him time. And then she's like, well, how about a massage? No, ma'am. He just said decision made. Shower, nap, gym. That's what he wants to do. And she's like, do a massage. That'll put us to sleep. No, 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 no. He doesn't want someone touching up on him. He wants to shower, nap, gym. That's it. And he says it's not normal to want to be around someone every second of every day. Agreed. Agreed. Get the hell away from me. Give me my time. Give me my space. I don't need you all up in me unless I actually want that. But like, I don't need that. Get away from me. I I've described myself as a cat. I want to be alone. I want to do my own thing. I want to be independent of you and not give a shit. But then there's moments where I want to be loved on. And then once I'm loved on, get away from me. That is me. And I'm starting to think that maybe Chris is a little bit like that too. You can't constantly have a stage 5 clinger when you want to be a cat. So this isn't going to work. And again, where does this come from? I'm sorry, but like when I see older women, again, I say older women, she's not that much older than I am, really. But when I see older women who are established, they have their careers, they have their life, and then they end up in a relationship and they act like this. And it's and I know I use this as an example because with men, it's not even so much it's I don't know, it's different. It's like controlling behavior. Anyways, there are men that can be, like, want to be all up in that and whatever. But it's different in this case, but it's just like you can't self-soothe. You can't self-soothe. You know what I mean? And even if you can't regulate and self-soothe, fine. Pretend. Pretend you can, you know, or get some therapies to help you with self-regulation. Anyway, so he says that. And yes, he is used to being alone. She says, I just want to spend time with my person because, like, we're not promised tomorrow. That's a you problem. If you're out here thinking that there's going to be an existential crisis every 2 seconds, that's on you. That's on you. Okay. This isn't a Bruno Mars Lady Gaga song. Okay. If the world was ending, you can't maybe be next to that person. Okay. If the party was over and then your time on earth was through, you might have to do that by yourself. You know what I mean? That's the lyric that was deleted out. Like, you may not be able to hold each other for a while and die with a smile. You might have to die with a frown on your face. You know what I mean? Anyways, love that song. Um, so you're really leaving me because God forbid he wants to take a shower and a nap and go to the gym. And then she ends this whole thing off as if she was back in high school with saying, I hate you for taking a shower, a nap, and then going to the gym. I would be disgusted with myself, to be totally honest with you. I'd be like, ooh. So Vanessa and Logan are fucking y'all. We got another couple that's fucking y'all. And it looks like he finished quickly because it's been a minute and she's complaining. But you know what? He got it out of his system. Hopefully this gets better for her. I wish you the best. So the morning afterglow for these two. And she's like, I like you 10 times more now because he fucked you. It only, you know what? Men, it's very easy initially to hold our attention, be nice to us. And I don't say like a Sophie, you're never nice to me. No, I'm not saying like that. Be nice to us, be kind, be gentlemen, and fuck our brains out. And you have us. There'll be more work that you'll need to do throughout time, and that's fine. But you know what? As long as you do those things, you're nice, you feed us, maybe you help, maybe a bill sometimes. and you give us great sex, we're good. So, anyways, she feels like I'm seeing the real Logan now. Then we're back with Jorge and Vanel, and he is looking unhappy, y'all. He says, so we're struggling a bit. A bit? That's an understatement of the century. Apparently, and I'm gonna tell you which side I'm on in a second. Apparently, some guy came up to them yelling threatening remarks. Now, I don't know what those said threatening remarks were, but something tells me that this person said the N word at some point in this conversation, okay? So Jorge yelled back because ain't taking that shit. Mm-mm. We ain't doing this. And Vanel apparently didn't appreciate that. He says, where I come from, I'm gonna go into protection mode because ain't nobody gonna come out here and disrespect me, disrespect you, or disrespect anyone that I love and care about. She says, well, I just felt uncomfortable in that situation and it could have been dealt with differently. I'm sorry. Let me tell you something. If someone is coming up to me, and let's just pretend my man's in the equation as well. Now he may not necessarily say anything because he don't want no problems, but if someone's gonna, we're gonna take him out of it. If someone's gonna come into my face and say some shit to me and is going to be threatening me in some way or saying derogatory terms to me in some way, you best believe I'm gonna I'm you want to be starting something, then you got to be starting something. Michael Jackson wrote that song for maybe a different reason, but I take it differently. You want to be starting something, then we're gonna be starting something. You know what I mean? Don't even, don't even. So I'm with Jorge. I ain't gonna sit there and let this person talk some shit to me. Mm-mm, let's get ready to rumble, baby. Like, that's what's gonna happen. He says, you don't know how it feels to be a man in this situation. And I 100% agree with him. We as women can put ourselves in that situation and try to understand and go about things differently for sure. But we really truly do not know what it is like to be a black man in today's society with all of the shit that has happened, especially in the last decade when it comes to black men and boys. So I 100% understand where he is coming from. Black women go through shit too. Look, we dealt with it with Breonna Taylor. Besides that, though, black women go through our shit too, 100%. But it is a whole different ball game when it comes to our black men because they are seen as threatening, point blank, period. So I totally understand where he's coming from. He says, you may feel it should be dealt with differently, but for me, I handled it the way I needed it needed to be done. The only way he knows how to. And do I think, like, I understand that she needs to be heard, but I think this is something you don't fully get. If you haven't dealt, and I'm with her on this, if you haven't fully dealt with what it is like to have racially derogatory shits come your way, then you don't have really a leg to stand on. Now, I might not have dealt with it. I've dealt with insensitive things said to me, but I've never dealt with racism in that way. And it really shocks me and embarrasses me to know that this happened in my country. That in my country, this shit is happening. Fuck that. We don't claim that. Not really. But it bothers me to know that that happened because obviously racism is everywhere, but I do feel like it's so, like the level of it in America is really bad in comparison to here. So to see that that shit was happening, it really pains me. But nonetheless, it's out there. It happens. And I don't know, like I said, I'm with him. I'm with him on this. He said, I hope you could respect that and have my back. And she says, "You're still not hearing me, but are you hearing him?" And again, it's not even has to be just about him. Look at what Black men have had to deal with in the last decade of police brutality, people dying at the hands of police and others, and getting away with it. How is that not angering to you? I get your uncomfortability and I validate your uncomfortability. But your uncomfortability is not with Jorge and how he dealt with it. Your uncomfortability is the person who came up to you and said the shit that they said. That's where your uncomfortability lies, not with him. So, um, she says how we are going to keep staying here to see if we are compatible or do we leave this experience. I take leave for 500, Alex. He says, that is up to you. And she says, why is it all up to me? Because it's from his perspective, you are the one with the issues. He has his issues for sure. But in his mind, you're the one that is unsettled with how things are. I don't think it's right. I think they both need to make a decision, but I'm just trying to understand him, I guess. He says, we have had 2 disagreements. And if this is going to break down for that, then I have to question things. I mean, these are pretty big things that we're dealing with. This could be dealt with. But the celibacy aspects of things, that's a big thing. She says, it's not just disagreements. I agree with her. He says, if someone is going to step up and start something, I'm going to diffuse it. If that is a deal breaker, then I get that. You have not been in a situation like this. I know how things have to be handled. With that, she's getting frustrated. She gets up and she walks off and says, I'm done. Great. Cool. That seems like a mature response. So Pfeiffer is talking to Derek. We take a break from them. Talking to Derek, introducing her to his kids. We're talking about introducing to the kids. She has been the child who was introduced to people probably too soon. And he says, I have a process, so don't you worry. First step is meeting his ex, and then we kind of go from there. And she says, I don't think my parents ever had like a system about how they would handle this kind of topic. So like what would come next, I guess, after that? And he hopes that she would move to Houston. It's pretty much impossible that he could move. And she honestly didn't expect him to, and pretty much realized that it was never an option. So yeah, she agrees to move to him. Back to Jorge and Vanille. So again, no one is talking. And he's like, you good? And she's like, what are you thinking about us? Maybe we aren't a good match. And he's like, well, we didn't even finish the conversation that we had because you walked off. And she says, okay, well, with the celibacy, for you to say you don't know, like that hurt. Yeah. And because leaving the promise room, I felt like you didn't care about the celibacy. Like it wasn't a deal breaker for him. If it was, I don't know, I would have gone home, is what she's saying. He says, we have done things. That's not celibacy. Okay. So I hear what he is saying. And maybe I need to figure out the definition of celibacy. But to me, celibacy, it would be the act of not having penetrated sex. But everything else is on the table, is it not? let's do a quick Google search on what celibacy is, because maybe I'm incorrect. Not Celine Dion, do not want that. Okay, the state of abstaining from marriage and sexual relations. So, the state of being unmarried and therefore sexually abstinent, usually in association with the role of a religious official or devotee. In its narrow sense, the term is applied only to those for whom the unmarried state is the result of a sick. Okay, this is too much. What are the rules? There we go. Celibacy. Here we go. That's a good one. Celibacy is the voluntary vow or decision to abstain from marriage. Well, and someone in her case was abstaining from marriage and sexual activity, often for religious, spiritual, or personal reasons. Religious celibacy requires a total permanent commitment. Personal celibacy is flexible, often involving no sexual penetration or total avoidance of sexual activity. So, in what I've just read here, her personal abstinence, which this is what this is. She's not a virgin. She's chosen to be abstinent moving forward. That's a personal choice, which means she can go about it in any way she so chooses. She can go about this as, I do not want to have penetrative sex, but I will do other things. Or it means not at all. Not to you, not to me, not to nothing. So that is a personal choice. So for him to say that what they were doing is not celibacy is incorrect. It just is. He doesn't know the terms of her celibacy. So for me, that feels shaming because we do not know the terms of her celibacy. She didn't tell us, the viewer. Maybe she didn't quite explain that to him either. But you could ask questions and go from there. She interrupts him and says, "Why didn't you say I don't know?" And he says, "If we can mess around, that's not celibacy." We just proved that that can be. That's your version of celibacy. We just established it is her version of celibacy. That makes it celibacy. If you said, "I do not want to have intercourse," then say that. She did. The power is in the tongue. So you gotta be careful what you say. Maybe you need to Google search. You know what I mean? Google is free. Um, so we good? Or she says, "So we're good." And he's like, "I don't know what that means." She's like, "We good. We can just go our separate ways at this point." She is done. Um, and he says, "So that's what you want?" And she says, "Yes." And that's that. She believes he is talking at her and not with her, which in this conversation, absolutely. He is talking at her. He thinks he knows it all. And she says, "I don't think it is the age differences, but just how he is." He believes that too, that's not about the age, but for him, it's the inability to communicate with each other. I think it's both. Anyways, we got a couples meetup. They don't know that Fennella and Jorge are gone, but here comes Nick and Natalie, okay? And they break the news that they've left. We update where everyone is at. Here, Chris says being together 24/7 has been a change. We've gone through that. For Leah, she says, "I like to cuddle with my partner, but he runs hot, so that does not happen." Andrew is like, age has only gotten in the way for the dumbest reasons. Like, who's Hannah Montana? She's got the best of both worlds. She doesn't know who Posh Spice is. And Leah, like me, is like, what? She doesn't know who the Spice Girls even are. What? Because she's two. Anyways, but then Natalie breaks the quote unquote bubble that they are currently in. starting tomorrow, we got visitors, we got friends, we got families who are going to challenge what the fuck we're doing here. The younger men are trying to process what's going on, but Vanessa is reading way too much into this, but not as much as Teresa is, because my girl is breaking down, which tells me she knows this shit is not going to work long term for them. Because for you to break down the way you are, you know your kids are not going to be okay with this. And if your kids are not okay with this, we are done with this. Logan tells Vanessa, I have a reaction to what is said, and you got to get offended by that. This is what I mean. Like, he can't be him. And she's at a high octave, okay? And he's like, hey, you're here. I'm gonna need you to come down here. But, um, and it's like, I don't know what the issue is. But he doesn't do this. And he doesn't, bring women to meet his parents. And he said that. I heard him say that. That was his answer. And she wasn't okay with the answer that she was given. And she's questioning, are we taking the same step? And he's honest here and he says, listen, I don't know if you're the one, but do I want to grow this connection with you? Yes, I want to see where this can go. But y'all, that is it. That's episode 5. Let's see if I got Vanille and Jorge right, although I remember saying hell no. And would you look at that? I was right. Anyways, that is the episode, y'all. So yeah. Anyways, we'll end that there. And we'll see you soon with the next episode. That is it for me. If you liked what you heard, bear with me because I have not done an outro for the podcast in quite some time. So bear with me here. So if you liked what you heard, you can go to any of your favorite podcast apps. You can follow, make sure you don't miss a single episode. And you can also rate the podcast at either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It'd be greatly appreciated. As a reminder, any 5-star ratings that are given to the podcast or any comments that are given to the podcast will be read on the podcast, which I have done in the past. If you want to connect with the podcast through social media, you can find me at Facebook and Instagram at realityt2. You can also find me at Twitter, TikTok, and Blue Sky at realityt2pod. I believe you can email me at realityt2 at hotmail.com, and you can have any inquiries, anything like that, any ideas, any shows or episodes you want me to cover, you can definitely do that over there. And I am going back to our old website, and that is at solo.to/realityt2. There you can get any of the links to anything that I didn't mention here, any of the socials, website, email, all of that. It's all there for you. And we also have a new thing there where you can help support the podcast as well. It's called a tip jar. And you can tip whatever your heart's desire if you want to support the podcast, but don't want to necessarily support the podcast in going to Patreon, for example, or any of the links in any of the advertisements. You can do it there. But since we're on the topic of Patreon, you can head on over to patreon.com/reality times 2, where there you can get access to even more than what I do here. There are 3 different tiers where you can get these shows ad free, as well as our next tier up where you would get another reality show that's being covered So, we have Jersey Shore that's been getting covered. That's still being covered currently at the time of recording of this outro. But the future is bright with what's to come in the future, which I will be discussing, or I have discussed. I don't even know. And then also our next tier is a true crime tier as well. So you can definitely head over for that. But that is basically it. I will also just quickly mention here too, if you're interested in a different take of a podcast that I'm a part of, we do things a little differently. You can head on over to Next Take Podcast, where I usually drop bonus episodes here on this feed, but there you get a lot more. And that podcast is making changes. We're growing, doing new things, but you can definitely head on over there if you want to just hear a little bit different than what I do over here. So you can find that podcast over at our website, solo.to/next take podcast. And there we'll have all the links to your desire that will link you to any of your favorite podcast apps or YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of it. Social medias, it's all over there. But of course, you can still find that podcast and any of your favorite podcast apps. But that is it for this episode. We'll see you next time with another episode. Bye, everybody.